for Tim Lander King stresses the need for a Yemeni-led political process. Gulf Council cooperation and United States support unified stable Yemen. Yemenis continue to face hard living conditions in healthy held areas. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Roshan Fuad. U.S. Special Envoy Lander King praised President Biden's commitment to ending war in Yemen. This came during an exclusive interview for Yemen Today TV. Lander King added the situation in Yemen was dire when President Biden took office.
When President Biden came into office just over 2 years ago, the war was raging in Yemen. There were cross-border attacks taking place at the pace in 2021 of more than 400 attacks from Yemen. There were airstrikes from the Saudi-led coalition into Yemen. There was very high loss of life, destruction of infrastructure. A lot of that has stopped, and I think that is a huge development.
Lander King affirmed that the government of the United States will continue diplomatic efforts until achieving an inclusive political settlement.
Let me repeat exactly what you quoted of me. We are in it to the end. And by that, I mean exactly that, which is to say that we don't accept simply a truce as positive as it has been for those reasons that I've noticed, the decrease in cross-border attacks, the decrease in fighting, the ability of Yemenis to move around their country and to access medical care and visit families abroad. I think these are significant things.
The Special Envoy also warned against the destabilizing role of Iran in fueling the conflict. He said that despite the Saudi-Iranian agreement, Tehran continues to smuggle weapons to the Houthis.
I think over the past years, Iran has fueled the conflict in violation of UN Security Council resolutions endorsed by the international community to prevent the smuggling of weapons from Iran by whatever means into Yemen. And you know, we're very hopeful that the agreement that the Saudis and the Iranians have reached would put an end to that type of smuggling. And I think it's early yet to say that box has been checked. That is an activity that Iran engaged in for many years.
The U.S. ambassador was briefed on the work of the United Nations investigation mission to Yemen in facilitating the flow of basic commodities to the Yemeni people. Fagan said that the acting assistant administrator of the United States Agency for International Development had the opportunity to visit the United Nations investigation and inspection mission. He praised the mission's work in facilitating the flow of essential goods to the Yemeni people, while helping to implement the United Nations arms embargo that fuels the conflict. Gulf Cooperation Council foreign ministers and U.S. representatives, includes Secretary of State Antony Blinken, have met to discuss the growing strategic partnerships between the United States and the Cooperation Council. The talks were aimed at enhancing peace, security, stability, integration, and economic prosperity in the Middle East. This report has more details.
The foreign ministers of the Cooperation Council for the Arab States of the Gulf held a joint ministerial meeting of the strategic partnerships between the countries of the Cooperation Council and the United States of America on Wednesday, June 7th, in the headquarters of the General Secretariat in Riyadh. The foreign ministers of the Gulf Cooperation Council countries, the Secretary of State of the U.S., Antony Blinken, and the Secretary General of the Cooperation Council, Jassim Mohammed, met to confirm the strategic importance of the historical relations between the two sides. The two parties affirmed their joint commitment to build on the achievements of the previous ministerial meetings and the Jeddah summit held on July of last year by strengthening consultation, coordination, and cooperation in all fields. The two sides stressed the importance of the ongoing peace efforts led by the UN in Yemen after the April 2022 truce and the resulting calm, and expressed their deep appreciation for the efforts made by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the Sultanate of Oman, and the United Nations envoy and the U.S. envoy in this regard. The two sides expressed their hope to see a comprehensive Yemeni political process leading to a permanent end to the conflict, responding to Yemeni's calls for justice, accountability for human rights violations and abuses, and putting the country on the path to recovery. They also affirmed their support for Yemen's sovereignty, independence, unity, and territorial integrity, and their support for the Presidential Leadership Council in Yemen, and urged the Houthis to seize this opportunity and take advantage of the past 14 relatively more stable months to provide relief to millions of Yemenis. The minister stressed the importance of continuing to meet the humanitarian needs of the people in all regions of Yemen and to provide economic and development support throughout the country. The two sides also affirmed their support for the efforts led by the UN to confront the environmental and economic threat posed by the safer oil tanker off the coast of Yemen.
President Rashad Al-Alimi reaffirmed the openness of the Presidency Council and the government to all efforts aimed at bringing peace to Yemen. President Al-Alimi said in a meeting with the Australian Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Tim Watts, today in Riyadh, that the responsibilities of the international community must be doubled to implement the resolutions of international legitimacy and end the suffering of the Yemeni people. He referred to the Houthi group's violations of human rights and restrictions on the movement of people and humanitarian aid. The governor of Taiz, Nabil Shamsan, met in Aden with the director of the UN Envoy's office. Shamsan welcomed the visit of the international delegation to the governorate and said it is an important step to review the transformations in Taiz. The director of the UN Envoy's office confirmed that he will meet the active parties in Taiz to come up with a clear vision to promote the peace process. The Houthi militia lives a life of lavishness and luxury in return for the impoverishment and starvation of Yemenis. The following report has more details.
The Houthi group and its militia members and loyalists live in luxury that Yemen has not witnessed before, at a time when the Yemeni citizen lives amid tragic living conditions and finds himself unable to provide the necessary basics after the policy of starvation and humiliation turned him into a beggar for international aid and handouts. The life of luxury experienced by the leaders and members of the Houthi militia no longer stops at the limits of establishing private companies, developing the war economy, holding sectarian activities, constructing buildings and places, and owning luxury cars, and it has reached a stage where the looted people's money have been diverted. It is a weapon to humiliate the people and a source of financing and covering the luxurious life of the militia, which transformed the most famous restaurants in the capital Sana'a into private kitchens that work day and night to serve them and provide them with all the food they need. The Houthi group's tampering, looting, and waste of public money soon turned into a scandal that ignited the bank bills presented by one of the most famous restaurants in Sana'a to Houthi leaders and elements, which amounted to hundreds of millions in a short period, in exchange for food provided by the restaurants to them, their families, and their friends without paying their value. Informant sources in the capital Sana'a said that the Houthi group, in an attempt to cover up the scandal, summoned the owner of the restaurant to pay the bills, which amounted to about 100 million riyals. The life of luxury experienced by the leaders and members of the Houthi militia has turned into a curse for them, as many doctors confirmed that many of the sick cases they receive, which are related to the leaders and the members of the Houthi group, are caused by overeating.
China urged that the issue of the dilapidated safer oil reservoir in western Yemen be addressed as soon as possible. They hope that the issue of the safer oil tank will be addressed as soon as possible to avoid serious environmental disasters. The United Nations announced the purchase of a ship to transport crude oil from the safer reservoir, which sailed to the coast of Yemen on April 7.
This is what the long journey was all about. The Safer sitting just off the coast of Hodeida with a dangerous load. The operation will start tomorrow to make the Safer safe, to pump its oil, and to clean the Safer for scrapping. We have arrived, with thanks to all our partners and donors, particularly thanks to the government of Yemen. The Safer is the biggest environmental threat to the Red Sea at the moment. We are on our way to pump the oil from this dangerous ship with the help of this Endeavour ship that I'm on. The Nautica, our second ship, the tanker, will come to the side of this ship and salvage will pump the oil from one into the other.
A citizen was injured in Kalaba, northeast of the city in Taz Governorate. Sources confirmed that he was wounded while he was returning home with his mother by a Houthi sniper stationed in the central security compound. The injury was concentrated in the right knee, and the injured person was taken to a Thawra General Hospital in the city to receive the necessary treatment.
I was returning home after Isha prayer with my family in Kalaba district, and all of a sudden I heard a bullet next to my ear. I survived those bullets and the neighbors have rescued me.
Coming next. Citizen in Shabwa opens museum house to show Yemen's rich cultural heritage. Welcome back. El Sheikh City in Hadramaut witnessed sudden collapse of a number of houses. This report has more details.
Thabit is with his family of 12 members who live today without money or shelter. They lost their house to a sudden collapse, leaving them with no place to stay.
The collapse of our house happened at 11:30 or 12. We were sitting in the living room when it happened, but thanks God, no human losses or injuries. But as you can see, the building is completely shattered, and now we have nowhere to stay. I call on authorities to help us.
Thabit is not the only one affected by the collapse of his house in the city of Al-Shihr in Hadramaut, but there are others that suffer from this problem. Their homes were demolished and they had to search for other houses and a place to stay.
This collapsed building had all my belongings. I call on authorities to help us. This house is on the verge of collapsing. We called for help, but authorities ignored our request, and this led to the collapse of this building. Thanks God, there were no human losses. These houses are very dangerous, and local authorities must find a solution for this problem.
A painful reality and a future full of fears and dangers are the titles of life lived by the residents of these collapsed houses. People are unable to restore the damage that happened, especially in light of the absence of role and support from the concerned authorities.
Al-Shihr is one of the oldest cities in the country, which has old buildings. We formed a committee to find solutions for the buildings on the verge of a collapse through an agreement with homeowners to evacuate them and find a solution. Hopefully, we start this by next week.
These old houses pose a serious danger to the lives of their residents. There are more than 15 dilapidated houses in most of the alleys of the city of Al-Shihr, with no support of the authorities, with no support or help from the local authority.
Informed sources revealed that the terrorist Houthi militia looted more than 1,500 farms in various directorates of Al Jawf Governorate. The sources told Khabar agency that the Houthi militia established companies and institutions to plunder farmers' property. An official source in the Central Bank of Yemen confirmed that the bank possesses sufficient external reserves to carry out its functions and secure the country's needs of foreign currencies. The statement comes in response to campaigns that promote false information about the depletion of the reserves of the Central Bank of Yemen. Shabwa, an open heritage museum in Bayhan to introduce generations to the heritage of fathers and grandfathers. In the city of Al Alaya in the Bahyan district in Shabwa Governorate, an open heritage museum is set up by a simple citizen for the purpose of introducing the visiting generations to the heritage of the fathers and grandfathers in the region with the aim of preserving this part of the popular heritage from extinction in the era of fashion. This report has more details.
Ancestors in Bayhan district and their belongings are the result of 20 years of work by one of the amateurs and lovers of heritage, Mr. Muhammad Hussein, whose passion is reflected in this humble expression, which is his contribution and keenness to preserve part of the folklore from extinction.
Regarding these items of cultural heritage, I began collecting them 20 years ago in order to expose the youth to the history of their ancestors and the tools they used, as well as to preserve the heritage of our town.
This museum is located on the side of Muhammad's house in Al-Wusta neighborhood in Al-Alia. It contains old collection of traditional tools, utensils and items that people used in the past, as well as costumes and traditional clothing worn by women in Bayhan as part of the authentic Bayhani identity.
I don't have a great financial situation. I work in a hospital and my salary is 30,000 riyals. If I had a better funding, I would have turned this place into the best folklore exhibit in Bayhan and published a book to preserve the culture. Also, Mr. Khalid al-Sheikh has a larger exhibition than this one, and we do not have a proper place to display our both belongings. I kindly request a representative from the Ministry of Culture to visit Bayhan because there are no visitors in this area and no educational trips to share the heritage. Additionally, local authorities can help assist young people with talent.
Heritage expressions in Shabwa Governorate are a reflection of the growing community awareness of culture and historical value of human heritage and the need to preserve it as part of the community's culture and social identity.
Here is a reminder of the main headlines. U.S. envoy Tim King stresses the need for a Yemeni-led political process. Gulf Council cooperation and United States support unified stable Yemen. Yemenis continue to face hard living conditions in Houthi-held areas. This is the end of the news. It was Roshan Fouad. Thank you for watching.